I was watching this documentary on the Star Spangled Banner and how the anthem came to be, the origin of the man finding the flag and writing the letter, how later on in history it became our anthem of the United States. And within this documentary, they had a montage of people singing the Star Spangled Banner throughout the decades, and just showing the variations of how people would sing it, what it meant to them. And then after the montage, they had an interview with a couple of people that sung it nationally. And they asked, what did this anthem mean to them? What made you sing it this way? How do you feel when you sing it, et cetera, et cetera. And one thing I noticed is with these interviews, it was a lot of people saying they either were in the military themselves, they had family members in the military, they like that the national anthem represents their patriotism to the United States of America. They talked about how they felt proud to be able to sing something so powerful, to have something mean so much to them. And I feel like no matter where you're at in the world, you probably have heard the Star Spangled Banner some way, shape, or form at some part of your life. And one thing about being in America and being a United States citizen is that you hear it every time, whether you're at a football game, at a military service. You could be in school, you can be at a college, you can be anywhere, and just hear it. One thing I've noticed consistently throughout the years is that this universal anthem usually brings tears to people's eyes. That line where whoever sings "Land of the Free," I've noticed that a lot of people cry. A lot of people feel that line. But this documentary didn't say why that line is felt in different ways within different races. What I've learned is that between growing up and just looking at these interviews is that when white people sing the Star Spangled Banner, they sing it with so much pride. They sing it with so much joy, with so much love for their country. Usually the meanings behind the Star Spangled Banner for them is the service of the United States of America. The pride of being a citizen of the United States of America. Usually when I hear a black person or a POC or a minority sing the Star Spangled Banner, there's soul to it. Almost as if the person is singing from their ancestors' point of view instead of themselves. There's so much pain, so much trauma, so much hurt. Now, we all know within the last couple of years of Colin Kaepernick starting the kneeling to the flag, there was outrage for years and years, and probably even still to this day in 2022, of him kneeling and everyone coming out and saying he was so disrespectful and you're starting something that you don't even know what you're talking about and you shouldn't do that and da 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 da. And throughout that kneeling, he started this movement alongside Black Lives Matter of where other football players, other athletes, other people with importance, with wealth and stature, when the Star Spangled Banner came on, they would kneel as well. And this caused an outrage throughout America. It even spilt over into other countries where people that weren't even a United States citizen were kneeling in solidarity of Black Lives Matter and solidarity of African Americans and minorities. It was such a controversial but beautiful thing to see the world come together and say, we are not going to stand for this anthem, an anthem that has been placed for over 70 years. An anthem that has been sung with pride and with love and with joy for 70 years. For the first time a couple years ago, people decided no more. We are not going to stand by the words. We are not going to stand by the song, the anthem, until we are treated and represented just as the anthem says. And for me, as an African American woman, when I hear the words land of the free, that very powerful note that everyone looks forward to when it comes to the singer singing, that moment when everyone stops breathing and holds their breath and hopes and prays on the inside that this singer hits this note, because it's such an important part of the anthem, land of the free. When I hear that line and I think about the racism, the police brutality, the wrongful incarceration of minorities and Black people, when I shed a tear on the part of land of the free, it's not because I'm prideful. It's not because I'm a patriot. I shed a tear because I know when it comes to that line, it does not mean it's for me. I know that when it comes to that line, me amongst millions of other African and POC people are the least free people on this earth, are the least free mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. When white people hear land of the free, I remember growing up and literally seeing older white men in their 40s with baseball caps jumping in joy, spilling beer all over themselves, like screaming in pride, screaming in happiness, screaming that they are a United States citizen. And I remember being a little girl and wondering, why do I not feel as joyful? Why do I not feel as happy? Why do I not feel as proud or as seen when this anthem plays across the country every day for different occasions? And that happened throughout my life. I would just see white people just enjoy and yell and be prideful and hold their hand across their heart with so much happiness, with so much joy. And they will sit there and weep and cry and sorrow and cheer and have joy as this anthem played. The only thing I noticed that I missed that the white people didn't have was I missed the joy. I missed the happiness, the cheerfulness. I wept because I wanted to truly believe the words that was being sung to me so powerfully, so historically, that I wanted to feel just as equal and just as part as a white man. So when Colin Kaepernick came out and kneeled and started that wildfire and kneeling in solidarity of Black Lives Matter and showing that I would not stand up, I would not hold my hand over my heart until I can feel as equal, as same as my white counterpart. When I saw the outrage of the white American when these protests were happening, it made me truly sit back and realize that they didn't understand. They focused so much on it being a sign of disrespect to military people, a sign of disrespect to the United States government, to the United States of America, than seeing it as African Americans not being heard, African Americans not being equal, not being seen, African Americans being killed. I saw white people take our kneeling and our protests so personal that they made it a villain within their own minds, but didn't see that we were doing it for our lives. We kneel to show that the America that you claim that is so free, the America that you claim that has God and love and family and unity and patriotism in it, isn't the same for a minority, isn't the same for a POC. And I think that is something that white Americans still fail to realize to this day, even though the kneelings are over and the protests are over, that the privileges you get with the national anthem is not the privileges that the average black person or the average privileged black person will ever get. A lot of people saw those acts of protest as ignorant, saw those acts of protest as being defiant, as being attention seeking. And it's starting to seem like there's, no matter what a POC does to fight for their lives, to fight for justice, to fight for protests, there is nothing that a white person can see and just say, I see you. I hear you. We need to change that. It's always, as long as you don't offend a white person, then you're okay in my eyes. Every time a black person is disrespected or killed or murdered or wrongfully incarcerated, you don't fight for us. All you want is for African Americans is to stay out of your way so you can live your happy patriotism life. So you can live by the words of land of the free, home of the brave. But when it calls for us screaming for our freedom, for our joy, for our love, for our God, for our unity, it's like your eyes close and they shut and you veer away. You don't speak up for us when we make our outcry, when we make our screams. But then you expect us to respect you. You expect us to hold our hands across our hearts when the flag comes up, when the national anthem comes up, but don't deem to give the same respect that you desire. Please. For years, historically, we as African Americans, ever since slavery, we have been saying, begging, putting it in many different forms of art, in literature, in words, is that all we want to be is treated as equal. We want to be just as proud and have just as much patriotism and joy and God within us as you do. The national anthem, when sung correctly, is such a beautiful song. It's such a beautiful anthem. The whole point of an anthem for the United States of America is to represent every single citizen within it. And if you only represent half of the population of the United States of America, is it really an anthem? And that is what we were fighting for. That is what we were trying to say. Is that if this only correlates with you as a white American, then it's not an anthem. Because look at how minorities, look at POCs, look at how immigrants are treated. You sing this song for the 1%, but then disregard and disdain the 99% left of this planet. Stop screaming that when you are in the United States, you need to be proud, you need to be happy, you need to understand your privilege. I understand there are plenty of places I can go in the world that are worse than the United States of America. And I understand that the United States of America is one of the top countries out there, hands down. But how can we continuously live in a country that is so powerful, that is so privileged, that is so high and mighty, and still feel so small and unseen, and still have racism, and still have police brutality, and have killings, and have murders happen under our nose, and claim that we are so powerful, and claim that we are so big and mighty? We cannot claim to be number one if you do not see us all as your citizens.